Hello and welcome to closing out my April 2021 budget here on Erin Twivels Around Aimlessly. If you are a returning viewer, thank you and welcome back. And if you are a new viewer, thank you for stopping by. My name is Erin, and on this channel, I'm covering my husband and I's journey to become consumer debt-free in 2021 so that we can begin our journey to financial independence. And we do follow the Budget Mom plan using a zero-based budget. I just have modified everything to work in an Excel spreadsheet and a workbook as compared to printing things off. So this is going to be my monthly budget reconciliation section of my budget spreadsheet. And if you are a returning viewer, you are familiar with this particular spreadsheet. So the parts up here where every month, and I'll link my most recent May video up above. So every month I come up with what our budget is going to be. And then throughout week by week, I fill in on individual sheets, and then I fill in the actuals that are spent. So people watching my videos pretty familiar with what this particular part of the worksheet looks like. What you are not as familiar with, and what I do not tend to always show, is this lower part. And that is down here in yellow. And this is where I reconcile everything. So how much we are spending towards our mortgage, debt, fixed expenses, savings, extra debt, our cash envelopes, and then also our sinking funds. I do look a bit more detailed category by category for our envelopes as well as for our sinking funds. And so I've had some questions about how do I go about reconciling our budget, particularly in this spreadsheet. So I am going to share that with you today. Okay, so I'm going to start with our income sources. When we plan our budget, we base it only on guaranteed money. That is usually our paychecks. What is here is called a payee. In the US, this is the equivalent to a W-2. And so you'll be able to see what we budgeted, what our actual was, what the difference was. So we had budgeted for myself for $6,440, for my husband $4,440. Those were on par. My son was supposed to give us $25. He did not, naughty boy, but he did buy me a nice Mother's Day gift, so I forgive him on that one. We did have, as anticipated, a one-off cash inflow of $24,600. This is due to the write-off of my husband's motorcycle for that. And then we pulled from our sinking funds $1,214 to cover other expenses. So the way that our sinking funds work, we put money into our sinking funds every fortnight. And these are for short-term and medium-term expenses so that we always have access to the cash. So we need to have a high level of liquidity for them. Whenever we have a known expense coming up, be it a registration, a utility bill, a hospital bill, anything like that, then when we take that money out of the sinking fund, we add it to our budget and we count it as income, because that cash is moving from our savings account into our checking, so basically our everyday spending account. Not everybody does that. I got that little tip from the Budget Mom, and I was like, hey, it works for her. Let's go ahead and do that as well. Otherwise, it really does kind of throw all of your numbers off, and it looks wonky. So we had anticipated just having an income of $11,119, a very atypical month, and that we had $36,694. Now, I would not complain if that was what our monthly income was, but it's just not. So everything that we have today in terms of our percentages have to be taken with a grain of salt, because we have this large amount, which is double what our income normally is. Everything is skewed. So our percentages are going to be off averages, anything like that. So probably not the best month to choose for first showing how we reconcile, but hey, sometimes you have these kind of months. You might have them as well. And this just, shows that even though you have them, you can still look at your numbers. You can still make some of those comparisons month to month, even if some of the statistics change. And this is how you pick and choose which statistics are really the most meaningful for you, for what it is that you are doing, and for what it is that you want to accomplish. So I'm not going to go through line by line each expense that we had. What I am going to do is just kind of walk through our larger amounts and the things that we really look at. And first one being mortgage. So we paid $1,480 to our mortgage. That was right on with what we had budgeted. This month that came to 4% of our income. Again, a lower than normal number because we have a skewed distribution with our expenses. For debt, our contractual that we pay, we have one outstanding debt. That is our consumer loan, while other than our mortgage. We pay $1,096 this month. That was 3%. For our other expenses, we had anticipated $1,354. That would be our normal amount. We had $15,081. So a difference of $13,772. That is because we did pick up another motorcycle to replace the one that caught on fire and burnt. So 41.1%. We did have some extra savings. We had planned for $105. We ended up putting in $1,967, 5.4%. And then extra debt, the other half of that motorcycle payout, $11,668 of that. That is what was used to pay off our credit card and then take out a big chunk of our loan. So 31.8%. And you will notice that this does not come to 100% because we don't have two of our categories in here. We do not have our cash envelopes and we do not have our sinking funds. I just like this because we're able to split out our mortgage and what our debts are from our other expenses. Total across all of those, $31,292. When we factor in mortgage and the debt, then we jump up to 48.1%. So $17,657 that went to our fixed bills. And these are bills, well, technically the bike was a variable, but it just fit better to put it into this particular category. But these are bills that, for the most part, they stay the same month by month and they don't change. That is different from our cash envelopes. Our cash envelopes, these are our variable expenses. And so these are things that we have control over, that we can make changes on a week by week basis, on a day by day basis even. And so we were a bit over budget on these, in that it came to $3,755 that we spent out of our variable funds. That was about $605 that was over budget. And that came to about 10.2%. And then our sinking funds, so these are our short-term and medium-term savings accounts, savings goals, $1,647 for 4.5%. That brings us to the entire $36,694 that was all spent on paper, and that it comes to a total of 100%. First category, one that is probably not too unfamiliar with anybody watching this video, and that is a grocery category. We planned on $1,200. We actually only spent $1,110 for a savings of $90. Woohoo! Coming in under budget there. 3% of our income. Household budgeted $200, spent $285, so $85 that was over. Spend, another area that we were over, planned $100, ended up with $150. So we were over by 50 for 0.5%. Fuel. Again, this one is one that is kind of out of our control. We need petrol to be able to run our vehicles to get to and from work. And petrol is quite expensive here in Australia. So we had budgeted $600 for fuel. We spent $710. That was $110 over budget. That was nearly 2% of our income. And so this was one that we actually had to change and increase for May. For transport, as anticipated, and this in part was because my husband was still driving my car a lot, and so the entire $300 that was allocated for transport was spent. This is another reason why he has the motorcycle, because it gets a reduced rate on toll roads, and sometimes they can't even catch the number plate, and so then you don't get charged at all. Our Hungry Hippos, $300 that was planned for them, spent $290, so $10 left over, just under 1%. This I'm not using anymore. Miscellaneous. Up to this point, we did not have a miscellaneous category. We now have a miscellaneous category because these really are things that we should think about. It's not so much that they are unbudgeted fun things. In this particular case, it was clothes. So $235 that was spent there. Health, I had quite a few additional appointments and prescriptions in April. So $250 was budgeted, $335 was spent, $85 over budget. And then for our bulk buying as well. So we had 200, spent 90, and so had 110 left over. And I cannot for the life of me remember what this was. It was some new category. I want to say that it was eating out that I added in. Either way, that was another $250 that was really kind of unplanned. So we did modify our categories to take into account, but that did result in us being over budget by $605, which is okay. That's also why we have that cushion in there, because sometimes you're just going to have one of those months. You might have one of those weeks. Heck, it might even be one of those days. Budgets are not perfect, just like people are not perfect, nor do I expect it to be perfect. In how it goes, those are the fluctuations. Now, is it going to average out over time and over the year? Absolutely. Finally, we have our sinking funds, so our short-term, medium-term savings. We have made some changes to our sinking funds as well for how much money we are allocating, because looking at the numbers, I was like, I really would like to have a higher percentage going into savings for these short-term, medium-term expenses, and we can afford that with the plan that we have. So without compromising our debt payoff date, which is September of 2021, we were able to make some minor changes. Are we going to pay a little bit more in interest in the loan as a result of that? Yes. It's negligible. It came out to, I think, about $10 was the difference in interest, and the payoff date still stays in the same month. And I just went, for $10, I'm just going to put the extra money into those short-term savings accounts. So we have our emergency fund. We already have our $1,000 emergency fund. We just like to consistently add money to it to top it up. We had planned $50. We added $85, so a difference of $35. Registrations, because we did have the motorcycle drop off, and then also our son has taken over ownership of his registration as well for his vehicle. That dropped down to $285. So you can see a little bit of the savings here, but it evens out kind of in the long run. Utilities, one of our utilities has changed from being quarterly to being monthly. So we're just absorbing that into tracking it as an expense each month. So that has been dropped to $122. Maintenance, we put a little bit more into our maintenance fund because it's always good to have money in your maintenance fund. You never know when you're going to have to fix something on your car or in your house or anything like that. And again, all of these numbers below 1%, but again, percentages don't really mean much this month because they're skewed. Christmas, $205. We hadn't planned for anything, but we ended up putting extra money there. Birthdays and other holidays, $175. Our subscriptions, and again, our subscriptions include both our personal, and we really only have about 3 personal. That's Netflix, Disney Plus, and Amazon. And actually, we don't even pay for Netflix. Our son does. We've just got Disney Plus and Amazon. Yeah, those are the only 2. All the rest are professional subscriptions. So things that I have for different websites that I need to use for teaching or for my professional societies, my membership fees, anything like that. So $110 is what that is coming out to. Hospital, this is one that we have since gotten rid of, which is why there was a decrease. That's why we changed our health cover so that we will now actually truly have 0 out of pocket, even for private cover. And our insurance excess, we had intended to put in 200, we only put in 50. So the insurance excess, that is, I guess, what is known as a deductible in the United States. Here it's called an excess or a gap payment. So the difference between what they cover and what they don't. And so you owe that difference in between. And we want to keep in that fund enough to cover at least the gap on one vehicle, so that if we have one vehicle get into an accident, we can easily cover that cost. Insurance, so we had set aside $70 because we knew that our insurance was going to increase and then that would offset some of that cost. And then we did put $80 aside towards getting the house appraised at the end of the year. So that gave us a total. We had budgeted $1,475. We actually ended up spending $1,647. So $172 over budget and coming in at 4.5%. So combined with where we were over budget with our cash envelopes, so we were 605 there, that would take us to 77. So $777. Three numbers in a row. At least it's not 666. $777 that we were over budget, and that's okay. That's how things go. Again, some things within our control. Household spending definitely within our control. Fuel, not so much, and health, not so much, because I will not compromise my health. I will not compromise getting my prescriptions or seeing my doctor. That's a non-negotiable. That is what we ended up doing for April. Again, I have to stress that this wasn't a typical month in terms of the extra income, and a little bit atypical in some of the overspending, but for the most part, it still reflects what it is that we do on a month by month basis. And I do a comparison month by month by month as the Budget Mom recommends. If you have any questions though, do feel free to go ahead and ask them in the comment section. That can be about how we track things, how I do things within my spreadsheet. If you have made it this far, do please give this video a thumbs up to show your support. It really does help my channel, and it just gives me warm fuzzies, and what's nothing wrong with being a bit kind and making a girl smile for a day. As always, remember to choose kindness, show gratitude, and always keep a positive mindset. I will see you in the next video.